You're in the right place at the right time, stretching from the distant spaceports of Black Spire, Mos Eisley, and Byblos, all the way in the bright center of the galaxy at Imperial Center, slamming into your holoprojector like a supercharged nanoparticle of coaxium. This is the Star Wars Unfiltered podcast. I'm John, and my co-host is Jason, and we are here to bring you your needed dose of Star Wars film, TV, book, comic, gaming, and collecting news. The date is April 14th, 2021. And we have a series of news items today. We got an update about the Alan Dean Foster royalty situation, sort of, and some other things related to him. The news of the Mandalorian original novel and visual guide and the fate of that, and some other things connected to it. We're going to be talking about those. And then we have some Thrawn Ascendancy Trilogy book news. And then we also have a review of Lando Double or Nothing comic series from a couple years ago. We're going to dive into that. So, how was your weekend, Jason?
It was great. I blew through Lost Stars.
Yeah, you did. I'm left in the dust on chapter 3, I think, something like that.
Well, I mean, you've read it before.
That's
right?
true. Yeah.
So, and you know, it's going to be a quick read, being a young adult book. So,
yeah. It's funny because it looks bigger than it is because it's a thick book, but it's kind of small print. So it probably, if you shrunk it down to paperback size, it would just look like a pretty thin 200-page novel, I would think.
Yeah, maybe it'd be interesting. It'd be interesting to be able to do that, right? Like,
I wish they would.
what would it compare to, like an old Young Jedi Knights book, right? Like,
yeah,
those
were
had
around
like
180 pages, I think, or even less.
And they were about normal trade paperback or size, right?
Yeah. I was even thinking, like, looking at it right now across my room, the original paperback of Splinter of the Mind's Eye is pretty small. It's only it's like 300 pages, but the print in it is rather large compared to other Star Wars novels at the time. So if you change the typeset and everything to, like, say, a Thrawn book, you probably shrink everything down to, like, truly something you could fit in your pocket with no problem.
Yeah, the good old days of reading books.
The good old days.
And I watched Godzilla again.
Oh, nice. The 2014 or the new...
Well, no, Godzilla vs. King Kong.
Oh, yeah. We just said Godzilla, so I wasn't sure.
Yeah, I know. There's like, 30 movies now?
Yeah,
in total.
Something like that.
Yeah, that's a really good... that movie's grown on me. I mean, I'm a huge Godzilla fan.
Yeah.
But it sat, I think, below King of the Monsters as far as the new MonsterVerse.
Yeah.
But it's growing on me. It's a little silly, but it's
that's the thing. You just got to accept the cheese with that.
Well, yeah. I mean,
duh. It's that kind of thing. There was a friend of mine who went into it recently, and he was like, "I want my money back." And this guy is like I think he's in his mid 50s or maybe late 50s, and he had never seen a Godzilla movie before. So I don't know what he was expecting, but we were all
go through life and never see a Godzilla movie.
That's a good question. I don't know. He's British. He's British. Maybe over
he's
there.
a big Gorgo fan. That's what it is.
That's their version.
He's only into Gorgo.
Yeah, he's a Gorgo nut. But it's just funny, like, even if you've never seen a Godzilla movie, you must be aware of the legacy of it, and you have to understand that probably they're aimed at kids and not like Academy Award winning, artists.
Presumably he would know who King Kong is. And
right.
If you have something fighting King Kong, it's probably going to be a little weird.
Yeah, exactly.
But
I want my money back.
But it's funny because, I'll cut the Godzilla movies tons of slack, but when it comes to Star Wars, I will nitpick the hell out of inter-atmosphere hyperspace.
That's right.
And all that stuff. So
yeah, and if
they double standard.
Yeah, when I'm looking forward to the Obi-Wan Kenobi movie.
One can only hope.
Yeah. But we won't nitpick that at all. Mine was good. Yours? Mine was good. Obviously more Clone Wars. That's the big thing lately.
Oh yeah.
Cramming. I was falling asleep on it last night though. I missed probably the last 10 or 15 minutes of the previous episode, so I'm gonna have to watch that again.
Season 3 or?
Yeah, we're in season 3, and I think we're about the middle of season 3, and going at a good clip. I'm still seeing about at least 3 a day, if not 4, And there
Mm.
was even a day like last week I managed to cram 8 in.
Mm.
So it's definitely coming along.
And if you're cramming in 8, are you saving, or like, are you doing that with Nicole, or are you holding back at all
No,
to stay in sync with her?
basically I'm just seeing whatever I can, and because
Mm-hmm.
she's already seen him anyway, like 5 years ago, and for both of us, we're not remembering a lot of stuff. Like these episodes are so fresh in some cases. I'm like, I totally don't remember this, but that's a good thing. So I'm just seeing whatever I can, and then she'll just pick up pieces here and there. But lately, we've been seeing the same ones. The way it's been working out because I've been watching during the day and not staying up late by myself, which is what
Mm-hmm.
I sometimes do. But yeah, it's fun going along, and it's funny though because like I said, I think last podcast episode, there's you forget sections that you thought were just kind of okay are really good, and then I'm discovering now as I go into season 3 that I I didn't notice it at the time, maybe because it was so spread out when I watched it, but I'm finding season 3 to be a relatively weak season.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just funny because in my memory, I thought it was the opposite. I thought it got better as it went on, but I don't know.
Well,
Season
it's
3
kind
is
of
my game.
sophomore. Not that season 3 would be sophomore, but it's kind of sophomore slump that a lot of anything has a problem with. You
Yeah,
know.
yeah, for the most part, that's true. But and then also a lot of them aren't arcs in season 3. There's just been one shot episodes, and
Oh yeah,
sometimes,
those are always like boring in
yeah,
any sort of series
yeah,
filler.
right. So, and then we saw the one recently where they had Quinlan Voss show up, and I can't remember if he shows up in later seasons. It might have just been the one episode, but I remember at the time there was kind of like controversy from fans of his because he was in all the Republic comics. Like there was the flagship Star Wars title just called Star Wars during the prequel era that
Mm-hmm.
started, around the time of Phantom Menace. And then as it continued towards 2003, I think they retitled it Republic.
Mm-hmm.
And so Quinlan Voss was a major part of the comic series, and they made him rather dark and brooding, and he had this whole history, and you didn't know if he was going to turn to the dark side or not. And he was very established as his character. But when they brought him in for this Clone Wars episode, I think people thought he just acted like a beach bum. Like the way he talked and the way his mannerisms
Yeah.
were
Yeah.
was not anything like his old character. So, it is what it is. But it's funny because then they did retain some aspects of his character. He has this ability where he can touch items, and through the force, like he can pick up the memory of who touched it or what they said as they held it. So it's funny that they cherry picked that thing and kept all that, but they changed his personality kind of. So I don't
Yeah.
know. It is what it is.
What's that Stephen King book
Oh
where they
yeah.
does that? That's like out of that Stephen King book. Oh, I
Oh, it
read that book.
reminds me of
And there's a
I,
series. They made a series
the Dead Zone.
based Dead Zone. That's it. Great
You're
book.
right.
And a good movie
When he
with.
touches people, when he like shakes their hand or something,
Yeah,
and
the book
then
was really good. I really like the movie too with
yeah,
Christopher Walken. Then they had that
yep.
series much
I
later.
Yeah, I just saw the Christopher Walken movie this last fall. I had never seen it, but it obviously had been parodied so much over the years.
Yeah.
It was like The Simpsons, and like there was so many parodies of it, so I kind of knew the gist of it. But seeing it was so good, and there was just little things I didn't know. Like Michael Kamen did the score, who
Hmm.
is a really good composer. He did the score for the Wall movie and some other stuff, and then the cinematography was really good, and yeah, that's a great movie.
They should
But
have
yeah.
they should have had references to that with Voss.
Quinlan Voss, yeah, I know,
Yeah.
right? He shakes Obi-Wan's hand or something, or Palpatine, better yet, to really make it like the Dead Zone. It's
Oh
like
yeah.
he's gonna become emperor. I have to kill him.
Yeah, he gets like a sharpshooting rifle and he's gonna
Yeah,
assassinate him.
right.
Yeah.
Actually, speaking of that, there was a recent Clone Wars episode where, like, no joke, this Ahsoka actually has these visions of Padme getting shot, giving a speech, and it keeps bugging her throughout the episode. And then it actually does sort of happen because Aura Singh is trying to assassinate her, and
Hmm.
it is almost exactly, now that I think about it, just like the Dead Zone
There you go.
story. So
Filoni's a big Dead Zone fan.
I know, right? Dead Zone fanboy. But yeah,
Well,
so
that's good. I mean, at the rate I'm going to watch the show, I'm going to have to watch it at like 5 times speed and
I
cram it
know,
all
right?
in one like a 2-day period.
Right. Yeah, you'll get there. Once you get, like we talked before, once the clip gets going, it's a snowball effect, and you find that
Mm-hmm.
you can't stop.
Yeah, that's true.
Yep. We have some news here about this is relatively old news. It's about a month ago, but I wanted to talk about it anyway because I think it is worthy of going into a little bit. There was the Mandalorian original novel that was going to come out, and we don't know the details of this novel, but it was canceled. And then there was a visual guide related to season 1 and 2 of the show, and it's been canceled. Now, interestingly enough, these were both announced as being canceled on March 9th of this year, just days after the whole Gina Carano hashtag Gina Carano situation. Um, so people naturally speculated that did it have something to do with her? Like maybe this original novel possibly focused on Cara Dune. Um,
I can see her being a big part of the novel, but the visual guide,
That one
like,
is weird too because I would think, okay, the visual guide, if it's going to be like all the others, is obviously going to focus on everything in the show. So I could see like Cara Dune having one page, maybe 2 pages on her gear and her background and all that stuff. But let's speculate for an example here. If if Disney was quote unquote erasing Cara Dune from recent memory, like they decided to do with some of the toys, like pulling them from stores.
which I just want to point out, I was at Target the other day and I saw like a one of those like super mini play sets
Uh-huh.
for Mandalorian, and it did have Cara Dune in it.
Oh,
They didn't
wow.
pull that, but it was like,
Yeah,
it was a little like,
yeah,
half an inch figure.
right. And maybe because it wasn't explicitly focused on her,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that's okay, we could speculate then that okay, and I understand these visual guides. Yes, there's a flow to them. Like even if they were going to delete one page or something, I couldn't see that halting the entire visual guide. So I can that one I'm a little perplexed by. And also maybe this announcement was just circumstantial. Maybe I think it was some people were thinking these because they said they're still going to work with that author on another original novel, and I think that that's still going to tie into the Mandalorian, just not
Mm-hmm.
that one that was planned.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe the visual guide is also likewise getting tweaked. Maybe they didn't want to release a season 1 and 2 one right before season 3 comes out. Maybe they wanted to encompass season 3 in it. I don't know. I'm just speculating, but I'm
Well,
disappointed. So
maybe the novel was canceled because of how big Cara Dune was in it, and obviously they're trying to minimize Cara Dune's footprint in Star Wars and all that stuff. And the visual guide was punishment against Pablo Hidalgo for his mean tweet against Star Wars theory,
you never
possibly.
know. You
I mean,
never
that's a
know.
little. I doubt that, but
Yeah,
I don't know. The novel I can kind of get, but the visual guide is just weird.
that is a
It's
weird
just really
one.
weird because they're so like they make that for everything for Star Wars.
I
They'll
know.
make a visual guide for every movie. They'll make a visual
Every
guide.
movie has one. I mean, even there's even been the kind of character encyclopedias and like I think there's been Lego versions, or at least like there's DK Lego Star Wars guides. If they're not visual guides, they're similar kind of things. So
And
I don't know.
it's so ripe for it. The
I
Mandalorian is so
know.
ripe for it.
I
There's like
know.
all these episodes, and he goes to all these different planets and stuff. It's
Yeah,
more so than a single movie that gets him.
dude, when
This
season 1 was out, me and others were like, okay, we need a visual guide. And then there was no announcement, there was nothing. So then when they did announce this, I think it was announced during the run of season 2, this last like winter. I think it was around then. It might have even been before season 2. It was like really close, like October, November. And everyone was like, okay, cool. Here we go. We're getting our Mandalorian lore
hmm
finally, like spin-off lore and stuff like that.
hmm
And now we're not, temporarily at least. So it's just
maybe it's something. Maybe it's just something completely disconnected
it could be.
from any controversy
It could
surrounding
be.
anything.
Hashtag Gina Carano, hashtag Gina Carano. It could be.
I mean, the fact that both of those were canceled kind of to me says that it might have been something else. Maybe just
Yeah.
they ran the numbers and it wasn't going to work. But then it's like, well, are you ever going to make a visual guide again? That's the
That
weird one.
I hope it just gets updated and delayed, which
Yeah,
is
maybe there was just
cut out the Cara
Season
Dune page, and then they put in whatever.
Dara Kuhn
Yeah,
instead of
dark.
Cara Dune. It's
Yeah,
well, it says here that it was going to be 200 pages, 600, more than 600 images. I can't imagine Cara Dune taking up more than one or two
yeah,
pages, and that's it. And
right, right.
you could have just removed her and like still reference like Republic Commando gear and stuff.
All that stuff, man, the weapons and everything. It's like, so it's going to be interesting over the next 9 months to a year to see how exactly they deal with references to her character, because they're going to have to in universe at some point, you know.
Well, it's annoying. I mean, just trying to erase the character is annoying because it's kind of the Streisand effect where
Yeah,
you're
don't
just
talk about
calling
it.
attention. You're just calling attention to it. Like if
Yeah,
I don't know. I mean, if they don't address it, there's always a chance of bringing her back, right? Like, but if they address it like, oh, she's dead, well, then it's like, well, then she's not coming back. I mean, because James Gunn came back
yeah,
to work
yeah.
with Disney and stuff, and
My own speculation is that I don't even. I'd be surprised if she had like one throwaway line to her in season 3, and she probably, like I've said to you off the podcast, she probably just ends up staying in Navarro and working with those kids at that school, and that's just probably it.
yeah, it's not as if they referenced her or felt the need to reference her after season 1 until she reappeared, right?
Yeah,
It's like
yeah,
it's a big universe and you don't really have to spell everything out like that. So,
right, exactly, and so yeah, it's just
but the visual guide, I mean, probably the novel too, but the visual guide was probably done.
yeah,
You
it
know,
was, it
it was
was.
only a few months away from being
Yeah,
released.
it was done.
Somewhere somebody's got a digital copy. Hopefully, it
That's
gets
right. We can
released.
leak it to the Star Wars Unfiltered podcast. We totally won't put it on a torrent or
Yeah,
anything.
I'm sure Pablo is gonna get right on that, or whoever's got a copy of it
Yeah, yeah.
on their thumb drive or whatever.
That's the
Yeah, it's a
thing.
bummer. It's a bummer because those things are always fun. There's so
Yeah,
many details.
they
So many little
are.
details.
I feel like because I have a hard time keeping up with every novel or novelization these days, those are my quick go-to like thing to where I can find out all the little Easter eggs and references and connections to the movie, whatever it is. So like the Rise of Skywalker one, when I was just skimming that, I still don't own that one yet, but when I was skimming it, it answered so many questions about things I had in the movie.
Maybe it's just getting reworked,
Yeah,
expanded and reworked. Maybe
I
because
wouldn't be surprised.
I guess it probably would cover season 2, right?
Yeah,
The
that
way it
that
was
was
going.
yeah, I think it said in the original press release it was going to cover season 1 and 2.
Yeah, so maybe it's just getting delayed and reworked and or expanded, hopefully, because I really like those.
Yeah,
Bummer.
yeah.
The next thing I want to bring up is the Thrawn Ascendancy trilogy and the release dates for book 2 and 3.
Yeah, they really crank these out fast compared to other book trilogies.
Yeah, which is nice. It was always a bummer to have to wait a long time in between novels or movies, anything like that. We're all
Mhm.
spoiled by binge watching stuff.
Yes.
So book 2 is going to get released in about a week and a half on April 27th,
Mm-hmm.
and the third book out in November 16th
That is
of this
insane
year.
because normally Zahn's trilogies are so stretched to really, for example, his first Thrawn canon trilogy, Thrawn Alliances, Thrawn Treason.
Mm-hmm.
Those were like, I think, separated a year apart. And I think even on the first one, they waited. Okay, normally books come out in paperback after 6 months. Dude, they milked the time on that first book. I had to wait like, I think 11 or 12 months before I could buy it in paperback because I've mentioned this before, but I just prefer to read Star Wars novels in paperback. That's just my thing. And I had to wait and wait and wait. And I remember just constantly checking websites and the store, like, dude, is it coming? And it just took forever. So it's funny that this particular trilogy, they're cranking out really fast.
Well,
And
it's kind of to me, it feels like it's sneaking up on us because we read the Thrawn book in the 2017 Thrawn book. I think we read it in 2017.
No, we read it in 2018.
Was it at 2018?
It came out in 2017 though. But yeah, then
so
we read it like spring 2018.
Okay, yeah. So you, me, and Jess, we read that in 2018, and then those books were coming out, and it's like, oh, it's going to be more than one book, and then there was alliances and treason and stuff, and we've sort of, the three of us, you, me, and Jess, have agreed that we're going to read those books together, and then for
Right.
one reason or another, one of us hasn't been able to read it or whatever. The next book, so we've been waiting, and then it's like, bop, 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 like,
Yeah.
oh, we got a whole nother
Crank.
trilogy. It's like, what? I still need
Yeah.
to finish the last trilogy, and now we've got the Ascendancy trilogy.
Yeah, and I mentioned this off the podcast, but I almost think it's Disney almost using Zon like a cash cow in some ways right now, because number one, they're trying to recoup as many losses as they can from various segments of their company,
Yeah,
whether it's the parks or books or movies, whatever. Zahn is when you consider Star Wars authors, he's probably number one, absolutely, because and not even just Legends where he's number one, but his name is synonymous with quality and consistency because he's a fast writer. You know, he stays like you never hear about Zahn getting delayed on a book or taking a long
right.
time like some authors we know of,
Hmm.
George R. R. Martin. Um, he's very good and he has a big collection of legend stuff. We went over this earlier where I think there's 10 or 11 legends books and then now he's, you
He's
know,
catching up to
releasing
that number.
he's catching up to that number and this isn't even including his short stories and stuff. So it, I just feel like he is absolutely when fans see his name, it's like, "Ooh, I got to buy that." Even if you're not even a book fan,
Yeah.
you might if you're a Star Wars fan, you're going to know his name because he kickstarted the expanded universe in 91 and all these other things. So, and also Grand Admiral Thrawn is just obviously now with him coming into the filmed television universe presumably on Disney Plus, it seems everyone knows his character. He is probably the most famous expanded universe character in existence for Star Wars, besides next to maybe like Mara Jade, which he also created. So it's
Right.
like,
Right.
you know, and anyway, I think they're just cranking these out quick because they're like, ooh, you know, we're getting over 2020 here. Zahn already wrote these, they're already edited. Let's just put them out fast just so people don't forget. But hopefully, in doing that, they don't confuse people who like see a new book and they're like, oh, yeah, isn't that the one that came out like a few months ago? You know,
Well,
because that kind
I'd
of
almost,
happened with Thrawn Alliances and Thrawn Treason. I
yeah.
remember seeing the third book and I'm like, wait a second, is this the second or the like I got confused. And
Yeah.
that's so who
Well,
knows?
it's really confusing when you start a series or trilogy of books with just the title like Thrawn, and then
Aftermath,
you start adding
Alphabet
subtitles.
Squadron.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Star Wars.
we yeah yeah
I don't
we're
know why do
really
they keep
seeing
making this mistake.
you
Um,
know, this was never a problem in the Bantam days. You know, you love or hate the Bantam days, but when the Corellian trilogy first came out, it said book one of the Corellian trilogy,
right. Yeah.
Ambush
Yeah.
at Corellia.
Hmm.
When Rogue Squadron came out, it said book one of the X-Wing series.
Right.
You know, Black Fleet
Yeah.
Crisis, book one, Before the
Yeah.
Storm. This was a simple and consistent thing that helped you let you know that this was going to be a trilogy. Are they are they teasing people that don't know if it's a trilogy and then it's like, who cares? Just announce it's a trilogy. It just, up front. You don't need to like pretend it's not. It's just stupid.
I just don't care. Whoever's in charge of that just
They
doesn't
don't
care.
care. They don't
Yeah,
care.
it's
And you
fine.
know, let me also say that while I'm railing on Disney Press and their books and you know, the artwork is still just kind of okay on a lot of them. Obviously they're going for a modern look with the colors and the imagery and they like things that catch the eye of younger readers, I feel
Hmm.
like in their teens and 20s, but whatever they put out is never in a million years going to hold a candle to the Drew Struzan covers of the 90s.
Yeah.
It's not even, and those hold up so good. If it just the typeset, the logo, the font, the paintings, that was the top of the line, and we will never see those days again.
So that's
Obviously not, because Struzan is retired. But
yeah, but I mean, geez, that's a really pessimistic view of
yeah,
novelization covers. But it's probably true.
yeah,
I I would almost have suspected that they would move these books forward to lead into Thrawn's appearance in some media,
that could
like in a
also be the
show.
case. Yeah.
Which I mean, I guess is possible.
Maybe they wanted them
Maybe.
all out by the time the show starts. That way, all three of them will be milking that money of the
Yeah, it's
fans that
just
are jumping in.
yeah, the only problem is the only two things that have like I think semi-hard dates is Book of Fett and Mandalorian season 3.
Yeah,
I think Mandalorian season 3 is that. I think it's Christmas 2021. They say so. I guess Book of Fett will lead into Mandalorian season 3. But if you anticipate Thrawn showing up in any form, it would probably be on
Ahsoka.
Ahsoka's show, and that hasn't been there hasn't been a date released for that as far as I
No,
know.
I would
So
expect we'll see him if I was a betting man, I would say 2022 is where we might see Thrawn,
yeah.
like in a
So,
show.
but I mean, maybe the maybe the books are doing really well, and they want to push that. Like you said, they want to push it while they're hurting from COVID and stuff. They're going to push something that's really working for them. So,
Or maybe they wanted Zahn to write a tie-in to Thrawn's live action appearance.
oh yeah,
And so
maybe they
they're
don't want
like,
it to be too compressed.
they don't want it to be compressed. So they're like, Zahn, let's get these out because you need to release that next thing you're working on in concurrent
Well,
timeline
and
with
these next two books are 416 pages each, so I can't imagine getting 1200 about 1200
yeah.
pages of Zahn within a year. That'd be pretty crazy. But like you said, he pumps them out, man. So
He's really good at doing that, and it's funny you mentioned the page count because I remember when I read Vision of the Future, dude, that book is like 650 pages, I think, or something
mhm.
like that. It's the largest Star Wars novel I've ever read, and I think Vision of the Future was close to that. It was 500 or 600, but man, those were massive. That duology could have almost been a trilogy if it was just kind of split up a
And
bit.
they're not like thick pages either. Like
Yeah.
they're the thin,
Yes.
almost Stephen King-esque
Yes.
thin, Bible pages that
Yes.
they'd have to use for like the stand and stuff. Yeah, those
Right.
those are big books.
Yes.
But he had a lot of
Um,
loose ends to tie up.
that's right. He had to, and he had to hook up Mara and Luke in Legends and everything.
Yeah, Lando Mara shippers were in ruin after that.
Right. So, anyway, these books are coming. We'll stay on top of them as they come out, and I think hopefully when book 3 is a paperback, or maybe I'll just read it as an ebook. I don't know, depending on my
Oh, you
reading
got it. It's
timeline.
2021. You got to do it. You
You
got
never
to
know
step into
because
the future.
yeah, they take place during the Clone Wars, and if everything, it's hard to say with my reading timeline. I always say I want to read this section, and then it takes me years to get there. But I'm going
Yeah.
at a good clip here, so I've been wanting to run through the prequel books, and I'm still on the Jedi Apprentice series where I left off. But there's not that many, which is the good thing. Once I get to the Phantom Menace and after, there's only like if you have adult novels, there's only like two between Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones. There's Rogue Planet, and I think Outbound Flight, and I think that's it.
Yeah.
And then the rest is all just young adult or young
Yeah.
reader kind of
Yeah.
stuff. But anyway,
Yeah.
we'll
So
stay on top of
April
that.
and November.
April and November, book 2 and 3. And now we're gonna do a little review of Lando, Double or Nothing, trade paperback comic series. This was I think it came out in late 2018, early 2019. Um, it was a 5-issue miniseries with young Lando during the events just prior to Solo, Star Wars story. So we read this. We thought it'd be fun to, catch up and do something from a few years back. This is my second read of it, your first, but I felt like this was such a good comic series. I really enjoyed it. Overall, what was some of your thoughts as you read this?
Liked it. It was kind of cool to see something that leads basically directly into Solo. It was kind of, I wouldn't say inconsequential, which is kind of nice sometimes though, because not everything has to be like have implications for the greater galaxy
Yeah,
and events that
galactic.
are coming up. Um, so it was just a light, airy comic book series.
Yeah, kind of like Solo itself, the movie. It just kind of a swashbuckling.
Yeah, 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 and it kind of gives a little bit of I wouldn't say background to Lando's character because it doesn't. There's nothing in it that changes him.
No.
This isn't like a formative story for his character, but it does kind of just reinforce his sort of his personality of being a scoundrel, but also like a decent guy. Like he's not a bad
Yeah,
guy or whatever.
I thought they did a great job of that. foreshadowing his administration of Cloud City and also being part of the rebellion. Because obviously, when he the basic plot of this is that there's this woman named Christus, and she basically is trying to use Lando and L3 to smuggle guns onto Petrusia, where her and her father are in indentured, or her father, I guess, are in indentured slavery, working in this droid repair factory for the
Hmm.
Empire. And basically, you know, he's just looking out for himself. He only cares about money, and his appearance. And I felt like that sometimes they went a little too far on making Lando self-centered. Like, obviously, it's done as a joke throughout the series, like all the jokes about his appearance and you know,
His vanity.
his vanity. It's very much like, I guess this is just young Lando. This is the way he was. But I think by the time we see him in the classic trilogy era, even though he's still charming and he's still a rogue and he's still like that, he's not as much like that. Which
Yeah.
thank God, because I couldn't handle Lando if he was like this the whole run of Star Wars.
Yeah.
But
Well, that's kind of the joke in the comic too, is that everybody gets sick of his
yeah,
crap.
yeah, yeah. But like you said, it's funny that it kind of sets up certain things with the rebellion later and him opening up to the idea of helping others. I felt like the dialogue was really witty, and obviously it's like quippy, you know, it's got that style. But I felt like L3 in particular was really funny, and I enjoyed her dialogue in this more than Solo.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree. She was I guess maybe I'd say she was mildly annoying.
Yeah,
Maybe it was just the way that she talked in the movie.
yeah.
But
I don't know.
I
She
feel like
just
she's
kind
better
of
written in the
bugs me.
comic.
Yes, yes,
The banter is better between her
yes.
and Lando.
Absolutely. Yeah, I don't know.
Um
Something about in the movie, she just comes off as annoying. And
yeah,
part of that is
actually,
by design.
yeah, and it's actually, now that I think about it, it is kind of refreshing that it wasn't like it didn't have to be something that Lando had to overcome some character flaw, or someone had to kind of break the ice of his heart to get him to help,
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
just he's gray, but he leans good.
yes,
It's not like Han and Solo where you sort of see, oh, this is how he became jaded, and
right.
a hard ass.
Yeah, which it's funny how Legends and canon just end up marking, they just end up ticking the same boxes
Pretty
on
much, yeah.
like
Yeah.
almost everything, but
Bum
like,
bum relationship. Yeah.
yeah, Han getting obsessed with a girl. Let's check that. Oh yeah, Kessel Run. Let's check that. Meeting Chewie. Let's check that. Oh, we got to show I gets the Blast Tech DL-44. Check that. Um, but yeah, no, it that's the way it goes with this stuff sometimes, and you just have to ignore that and just enjoy it for what it is. Um,
Something I just realized flipping through the comic book is he never changes. He only changes his cloak in this
he's
comic series.
he's got the
Obviously,
yellow
yeah,
like.
he's just got his yellow tunic on,
That's
and
funny.
that's it. And he doesn't change. And it's kind of funny because that seems like kind of out of character for him. I
It
feel like he
would.
would.
Yeah.
It's just a comic, so it'd be easy to like change it. But
Yeah, maybe he didn't have time. Maybe it was so to the minute with saving the Petrusians or something.
yeah,
Um,
I just feel like he would have changed, or maybe he would. I don't know. That's just like that's really like a minor
no, it
detail.
is.
But
It is.
him
Overall
being
though,
so vain and stuff, it's I would have
yeah,
expected him to change shirts maybe
right,
when he got on the Falcon before getting to the planet and stuff.
right. Um, Speaking of the artwork, this artwork is gorgeous. I really like, and this is mostly the case with a lot of the Marvel era Star Wars art. Um, it's mostly very realistic, where it looks like the actors, the ships
Uh-huh.
all look normal. The action is very stylized, like it's fast paced, but it also visually looks very much like the movies.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because and Dark Horse Comics also, for the most part, had a similar aesthetic with their comics from the 90s into the 2000s. But even during Dark Horse, there was anomalies where sometimes they would try something different or just hire another artist who would maybe have a more stylized,
Distinct style.
distinct style that might not lean towards realism and was more cartoony.
Yeah.
And then obviously during the original Marvel years in the 70s and 80s, it was really stylized because that was when the older artists from the 60s and 70s were getting older and starting to phase into a new generation of comic art. So you had these guys that were like in their 50s doing this brand new Star Wars thing, like Carmine Infantino, and I think Jack Kirby was still doing art in the 70s and 80s for Marvel. And so their style was more dated when you see those old 70s Star Wars comics. It does not hold up very well for the most part. But
Yeah.
in the 90s, things changed. Definitely was a huge improvement for the most part. But I feel like now, and this comic is a good example, it's great. I can pick it up and you can hear the sounds of the TIE fighters, and it's just really easy to just fall into it, and you're not bothered by the artwork like, oh, I don't like the way that looks, you know. It's just very,
Yeah.
very good. So kudos to Marvel for having, good realistic Star Wars art.
Yep. And the Falcon looks good in it too.
Yes.
With the that one compartment still attached.
Oh, right, right. Yeah, the front section, the
Still takes
mandolin.
getting used to, but
I know, I know. I'm still
that
not, yeah.
that particular like iteration of the design is growing on me as I see it more in other like media and stuff.
Yeah. I think there was an inconsistency in the story. Speaking of the Falcon, because Lando mentions at least once or twice that he wants to add a wet bar
Mm-hmm.
and these other couple things like a nice couch, for the Dejart table or whatever. But by the time of Solo, he has a wet bar when he gets it out of impoundment at Fort Yipso. So it's
Yeah.
like he obviously didn't add the wet bar in the story because it was impounded immediately. So what the hell? He just
Yeah.
like did the Imperials like install a wet bar.
Well, it's really
Like,
weird that like at the end the Imperials, grab the ship and they impound it somewhere else.
yeah, why would they also
Why
why
did
would
they
they
haul it all
impound
the way
it?
to Vandor?
Yeah, why would they impound it there at this kind of like out of the way small little like hunting lodge slash ship? It's not even a
Yeah, in
shipyard.
the
It's like,
movie, it seems like it got impounded there by local authorities.
yes, yes,
Not there didn't seem to be a huge imperial presence there,
no,
right?
no,
So like it's just really weird. Like I feel like there'd be like some central impound or a space station that they impound all
yeah,
the things or the ships in the sector at or something.
right.
I don't know. It's just really that was really weird.
That is weird,
Maybe
and I didn't think of it until just now. But yeah,
well, that might be something where like they weren't sure it was going to lead right into
and
Solo,
so yeah,
and maybe they were planning more issues or another
oh
maybe
yeah,
not more issues but like another series.
another series connected to this one,
Yeah, that would like maybe not even be connected, maybe just be
a
another
continuation.
a continuation, something set between this series and Solo,
Yeah,
and then it got
yeah.
canceled and then they're like, okay, we'll just have the ship go to Vandor.
Yeah, now that you mention that, I think that's the deal.
I mean, it's
Um,
possible. I don't know
it's
if that's
possible.
true.
Yeah,
Could
because I
just
know
be a
comics get they obviously get the story approval like way in advance of it coming out, like a year, like
Mhm.
usually a year in advance on the script and everything. So,
Yeah, and the
you know,
stuff. It's very fluid.
yeah,
Because you hear all the time about certain comic series that got cut short, certain story threads that get cut short, maybe get picked up later and stuff, and that's been
yeah,
happening for forever in comic books.
right.
I
Yeah.
was doing deep dives into Jack Kirby's time at the DC when he
Hmm.
created Darkseid and all that and the New Gods. This was after I watched the Zack Snyder Justice League, and
Right.
I was reading about that and how I think his run of New God stuff got cut short and they had to pick it up later and all this stuff. So I mean that stuff's been going on forever in comics, so I could totally see that being a thing in this series where they just sort of inserted that at the end to
Yeah.
kind of chop it and that's it.
Right. And you and I and other fans, like, we can always in our head, there's some headcanon reason about why the Imperials took it there, and it's just like whatever. It's not like it's gonna ruin my absolute enjoyment of the comic just because of some little nitpicky thing like that. And besides, it's fun to talk about and
Yeah.
speculate. Um, yeah, basically, the other thing I wanted to highlight here was the constant joking about the Calrissian Chronicles,
Hmm.
and I like how the movie did that also, where he's
Yes.
recording his chronicles. And I still think, it's a good theory about the upcoming Lando series. If they just call it maybe the Calrissian Chronicles or something, like maybe just have it be Lando narrating, you know, or Billy D. Williams narrating his chronicles, and then we see the actual realistic version of over what he's kind of puffing up with half truths.
This is all the stuff that we should be getting
Yeah, I
on
know.
Disney Plus and stuff.
I know.
This should be, this movies and all this stuff.
Yeah.
If they hadn't put the movies on hibernation, on life
Yeah.
support after Rise of Skywalker, we should
Yeah.
be drinking from the movie. And I mean, I guess we will get a lot of series and shows coming up in the next.
I want
2
my
years,
Solo
but
too. I want Solo too.
I do
Come
too.
on.
Or a series.
Yeah.
I want, young Lando. I want them to recanonize the Lando books. Like,
Yes.
update the stories, make the adjustments you want to make, but I want Vuffy Raw
Roker
and the
Gepta.
banter. That's right.
The croak.
I want those recanonized.
Absolutely. And that goes for Brian Daly's Han Solo adventures also.
Oh, yeah.
I would love to see those with
it would be great to see something set in like kind of a different kind of sector than we're used to in Star Wars, like the corporate sector.
Corporate sector, the centrality, or for the Lando books.
Maybe it just in general, the planets and cities there all feel different than what we're used to in sort of Republic style cities and planets.
It's funny that like those early novels were forced to do that to not conflict with the current movies. They were like, no, you don't use the Empire because we don't know exactly how to depict that or what's going on with that after the Death Star. So you have to write these. It's stupid because it was before the Death Star anyway, but it was like they were so careful about Lucas and what he wanted to do back then.
Smart though.
It was smart, but then it led to some really interesting creations with the corporate sector. And then instead of stormtroopers, you had espos, and that's what I'd like to see in a series: different security forces, different ships that different companies have, and factions. And dude, Star Wars is such a vast galaxy. There's so many local governments, and then going post Return of the Jedi, obviously you have the splintered empire, and there's so much potential for endless storytelling. So no one going into canon or any writer or anything should never feel like they have to be boxed in because there's so much potential.
Yeah.
So
well, I saw a rumor about Disney. This has got to be 100% grade A bull crap. But I saw a rumor about Disney releasing a Hulu exclusive Star Wars show that would focus solely on the Chiss, and it wouldn't have anything to do with the normal Star Wars stuff. It would just have Eli, Vanto, and Ezra in it. That would be the only connection. It's complete bullcrap. It's 100% a LARP.
It sounds like somebody on a fucking forum, a Zahn fanboy forum, like coming up with this thing out of their ass.
Well, I mean, you can tell from the beginning. There's no way in hell Disney would release a Star Wars show on Hulu and not market it as a Star Wars show.
It does not make any sense.
But I only bring it up because it's sort of in that same vein of what we're saying, where you have these locations and stuff where you can make something that's really unique within Star Wars, but still connected to it. You could still connect it in certain ways with certain characters.
Kind of like E.T. being a Star Wars movie.
Exactly. Yeah, it is. Like, it's
it really is.
It's canon. But it's like that. You show the corporate sector. Everything's different. You don't have stormtroopers. You don't have Star Destroyers. You have completely different ships, completely different cities, planets.
Yeah, they drink caffeine instead of calf.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, stuff like that. Little, and you could plop Han into it, and you'd have yourself a series. Could be Solo too.
I mean, I still can't believe we had 3 Lando Calrissian Adventures references in Solo with Oseon, the Star Cave, and the Sharu when he's talking about.
Yeah,
there I was with L3 in deep inside the temple, and it was like, even though it was L3 with him in the story instead of Buffy Raw, it was still cool just to hear the word Sharu in a fucking Star Wars theatrical movie in the theater. Like, I don't know, the Lando Calrissian Adventures are so close to my heart. It's up there with Tales from the Mos Eisley Cantina for me, where and I think partially I love it because no one talks about it. It's
Right.
like
It's kind of obscure.
it's really
You can
obscure.
get really
It's
snooty about it.
yeah, it's early because it was only the third book collection after Splinter and the Han Solo adventures and the maybe the trilogy. But like it's yeah, I don't know. It's offbeat, it's pulpy, it's different. Obviously, not everything in it neatly fits into like later continuity. There's some squiggle kind of things you have to like kind of jam stuff in, but I don't know. It's forgotten, and it was so witty, and the writing was so good. So L.
Well,
Neil Smith, wherever you are out there, we want you as a guest on our show.
it's just a good example of something that could be pulled in that is ripe for updating and for fan pleasing and stuff. Similar to what they do with the Marvel stuff, where
Yeah,
they pull from stories and arcs and stuff from the thousands of comic books for each
yeah,
character that's been written over the last
yeah,
60, 70, 80 years.
yeah.
And you don't have to come up with a series for Lando. It's right there. Just update it. Change, make changes as you need to. I mean, I would hate to lose Vuffy Raw because he's such a big part of it. I mean,
No, and
obviously,
they won't. That's why they got rid of L3 when they did, because Buffy Raw is going to come in and be the new droid.
wow,
That's why.
that's really they're really jamming it in there. I don't
Yeah, I
think we
know,
got enough
right?
time on the timeline
Yeah, I
to
know. I know. Well, but you know what? Okay, here's a theory. What about this? What if, because I know that they kind of did this in the Jedi Academy trilogy a little bit. What if Lando wins back the Falcon from Han in another Sabacc game? And then he goes off and has his Calrissian adventures, Calrissian Chronicles. And then so the one we thought we saw of Han and Chewie really getting it, like from what we imagined, actually comes later.
It's
So
true.
you never know. I mean, because I don't know if you remember, but in the Jedi Academy trilogy, Lando temporarily wins it back
Yeah,
for
I
like
do
half
remember
a
that.
book.
Yeah, no, totally. It could be like a trope, a mini
Yeah,
trope.
I wouldn't mind it. So, you know, it's just
And
something to think about.
that's the thing too. That was my favorite trope. Probably my top favorite trope of the old EU was Lando stuck with droids.
Yeah, whether it was
Like
R2 and 3PO or Buffy Raw
or Lobot.
or
I think
Lobot,
wasn't there one where he was with the droids and Lobot?
the Black Fleet Crisis.
Yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, because Lobot made it to the cover.
Oh yeah,
That was
he's on the
exciting.
cover.
Yeah,
Lobot has been painted by Struzan.
I know.
So
That's big.
yeah,
That's
yeah, I
big.
certainly know that first book inside and out. So I would never
Did
forget
they
that.
Did they? Yeah, I could look through this vast collection here, but did they ever make a comic adaptation of the Lando series?
They did not.
So they can
Although
still do it then.
they could still do it. And the first Han Solo adventure, Han Solo at Star's End, did get an adaptation in the newspaper strips in the late, or it might have been 1980. And then
Hmm.
that was colorized and collected by Dark Horse, but it's not good. If you ever see the Han Solo at Star's End, the artwork is some of the worst Star Wars comic art I've ever seen. And the artist didn't he was just kind of doing whatever was his own thing when it came to like bullocks and the ships and stuff,
Uh-huh.
because it does not match how things should look in later kind of stories.
Yeah.
So it's terrible.
Yeah.
But
Well, if it was published in newspapers, then
that's the thing with the Star Wars newspaper strips. I just finished reading the early adventures, classic Star Wars, the early adventures by Russ Manning, and those were newspaper strips in the late 70s. And some of the artwork is pretty good here and there, but it's very late 70s. The writing, the plotting is terrible. It's some of the worst Star Wars literature I've ever read in my life. But it's funny because it's like a historical thing. It's a moment in time. And actually, Russ Manning was a very highly regarded writer in the late 70s because he had written, I think, for Flash Gordon
hmm
through the 60s. And so he had this pedigree of like classic sci-fi and stuff. And then it was like when he wrote Star Wars and was doing the newspaper strip, he was like dying of cancer. So I can't really like crap on him like completely, because it was like some of his last work he did. And then Archie Goodwin and Al Williamson came in on the newspaper strip, and they pumped it up and made it awesome, and the artwork was awesome. And so it ended really well. But anyway, that's a little side thing about the newspaper strips. I just had to mention that there's definitely bad Star Wars fiction out there.
oh yeah.
as we
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
But it's all about the grand picture because like we've said, if you don't like one little thing, there's something else over here that you can draw from and you'll enjoy and love. So it's so big, and so the library is teeming with thousands and thousands of games and comics and stories. So who cares? Who cares? Just move on to the next thing. And if you don't like, say, like four things in a row or whatever, maybe it's not for you. But I know for me, my standards are so off the wall and just kind of like whatever. I can just, just keep
Well,
going
it's
and
hard. It's
stuff.
hard to say what's going to resonate and what's going to ruffle your feathers sometimes.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
it is.
especially as a Star Wars fan, because there's stuff that, especially in the Disney sequels and stuff, there's stuff that I feel like probably should have really jazzed me up, and it really had the opposite effect, and then
Yeah,
vice versa. Like,
yeah, yeah,
so
yeah. There's good and bad. And when I think back of like when I think back to '90s Star Wars games and comics and whatever, it was kind of the same. I can look back and see that there was some things I was just excited about because it was new, like Dark Empire 2. But when I read Dark Empire 2 now, I'm like, it's just like, whatever. But at the time it was like, yeah, it's the new thing. It just came out and I'm excited and going to the comic store and it's a big deal and
yeah.
we love what we love.
Well,
So
look at to finish up, just verbal diarrhea about the
yes,
Lando Calrissian adventures. L. Neil Smith is still alive, so
yes,
he could be a part of it.
yes.
However, he is a libertarian, so I'm guessing a
Uh-oh.
libertarian activist. So I'm guessing that Disney
Uh-oh.
probably won't call him up if politics have anything to do with it. I don't think he's going to get the call anytime soon.
Someone that can see both sides. Oh no.
Um,
Yeah, that would
but
be.
nice that he's
Yeah,
still alive though, because
yeah.
you know.
Very, very sadly, there were in the '90s they were working on a Lando Calrissian Adventures source book for West End Games, and it's mentioned in an interview with Bill Smith from West End in one
Hmm.
of the adventure journals. And he talks about how this is coming out and they were working with L. Neil Smith in
Hmm.
adding details to the source book. And it was going to be like any of their other source books, like the Han Solo and the Corporal
Yeah,
Sector source book and whatever. And it just never came out. And I think that was even one of the things because I wrote to West End Games in I think '96. And I remember asking, is that still coming? And they did send me back a like I think it was a postcard with just a really
postcard just
quick.
said no.
I know, right? No, they actually answered. I had like three or four questions, and they just said no. There's nothing currently planned, but like maybe something like we're still hoping to get it out. But sadly, it never did. And then another
Mm.
one was they were going to do a Rogue Squadron source book with Stackpole, and that
Mm.
was actually written and finished and ready to go. And then West End Games went under in
Yeah,
'98
yeah.
and that obviously didn't come out. Now, the real sad part of that is the author of the Rogue Squadron source book still had the files on a disc and everything, but
Hmm.
then he lost the files. They were like, erased or just like corrupted, or I think they were corrupted, he said. And it was just like, no, it
You
was just
need
one of those,
backups.
got a backup, man. So
Backups,
that's
100%. It's
that's
not
why
it's not backed up unless it's in two places.
Yeah, that's why I backed up all my floppy disks from the '90s because you got to otherwise.
Magnetic media does not last forever.
Yeah, and the CDR has become oxidized. So
Yeah,
yeah. Anyway,
that's a bummer. That's a bummer.
to wrap this up, Lando Double or Nothing is great. Go read it. I think it was really fun. It's witty, it's funny, it's full of great action and humor and
Yeah, and
dialogue.
the art's really good.
The art's great. Go
It's not
check
going to
it
change
out.
your perspective on Lando or anything, but
No,
it's a fun
no.
read.
It's a fun read. Go check it out. I'll give it a B plus.
Let's talk about the Alan Dean Foster update.
Yeah, so what is going on with that lately? I know we had some last minute information. Like
Not even really last minute. It's just like, oh, actually, because I was looking for news on the thing with Disney, and he doesn't have like Facebook or Twitter or anything like that. He's like super old school. He actually has his own website and his own blog on his website. So
right.
I dug deep enough to finally come across his personal official website, as if it's hidden. And
Yeah.
at least as the latest update is April 1st, and there is like talks going on in the background
Hmm.
between him, his people, and Disney as far as his royalties are concerned. And there
That's
should be an
good.
update, an official announcement soon regarding
That's
it. So,
good.
so the ball is rolling, thankfully.
Yeah.
But it's funny because it's like, well, what's there to talk about? Just pay him his money. Like you had a deal,
Yeah, come
right?
on, Disney.
Like
Like, geez. And
it's
the
like
fact that
Disney's like
they
Vader. They're just altering the deal.
seriously, dude. You know, that's the thing. Like, there was no communication on their part, the way everything was written and implied in the open letter he
Hmm.
put out. It's just that the checks stopped coming.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay. Like, come on, Disney.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully it's, a non-issue and it's benign and all that stuff. So, but
Yeah.
we'll see. And then the other thing was I kept referencing a book that he was writing, a sort of a memoir. And
Yes.
the book is coming out this month. It might actually be out today.
Oh,
I don't
cool.
remember, or yesterday maybe. What, books come out on Tuesdays, right? Is that a Tuesday
They
thing?
that was music and it used to, but no
Oh,
longer.
oh,
Now
okay.
now it's just open ended. Whenever something wants to come out, it can.
We're showing my age.
Yeah,
But I thought
Music
everything came out on
Tuesdays.
Tuesday. Yeah, I
Well, it
thought it
was
was.
the case. I think that started in 1989 or 90, and
Hmm.
I remember when it ended, just about 3, maybe 4 years ago, or it was recently.
But
But I
wasn't
remember
that
that
for
was a
like almost all media? Like if a movie came out on home,
yeah.
home format, it would be, was it Tuesday or was it like Thursday or something? I don't
Movies
remember
may have had
movies.
their own day, but I know for a fact it was Music Tuesday,
Yeah.
where it was in the US, because it was always in Britain and Europe,
Hmm.
it was Monday, because then the rollover as it went to us, it ended up
Right.
being Tuesday anyway.
Yeah.
And it was easier for them to calculate sales
Yeah.
in
Right.
Europe and the US like sequentially like that.
It's kind of
So
like movies, right? Movies used to premiere on Friday,
yeah, now it's Wednesday.
and then
Ever since Lucas with the Attack of the Clones, I
well,
think
it
he
was. I remember distinctly. I think it was like, so you'd go Thursday night, right? Because it would be like
yeah,
midnight, 12:01 is when the movie
yes,
comes out. And
yes.
then when I saw the remake of Evil Dead,
Hmm.
all of a sudden I was like, well, I can buy a ticket for 9 o'clock, not midnight.
Yeah, yeah, I
That was the
know.
first movie I saw that I think was like Thursday night.
Yeah, and then they
Like,
started doing fan events where it's like the day before is for the fans.
right. And all of that is to pump up their weekend numbers,
Yeah,
right?
that's
That's
all it
like,
is.
yeah, so,
That's all
which
it
is
is.
fine. Anyway, Alan Dean Foster, his book is called "The Director Should Have Shot You," and it's about, he chronicles and details working on various novelization projects for movies and stuff.
Interesting. And he's written many novelizations.
Yeah, tons, dude. He's like the go-to guy,
He
and they're all
is.
great. I mean, I mentioned before, I think the first adult novel I read was his adaptation of Alien,
Yeah,
and that was really good.
yeah.
And then Star Wars. So I think he's got a lot of dirt on the black hole.
Nice.
So, and that's kind of that movie has problems, but there's certain concepts and scenes in it that are really stark to me in my
Yeah, I
memory.
rewatched it probably 4 months ago. I think it was in November or December, and I hadn't seen it before that for like 10 years. And it's weird. It's a movie I've not watched a lot. I've only seen it like the 2 times, but I had the storybook as a kid.
Hmm.
So it's weird. So the imagery of the movie is nostalgic, but the movie itself is still relatively recent in how I
Well, it's
experienced
because
it.
it's one of those things Disney wasn't shoving down everybody's throat for the last 30
Yeah.
years. It's kind of
They,
like the Black Cauldron. They kind of just,
this
this was a
happened.
thing, but we're not gonna
Yeah. But then
have it
it's
everywhere.
funny because it has its fans.
Hmm.
So I didn't even know actually that Alan Dean Foster was connected to it.
I didn't
But
know either until he mentioned it. And I don't have like a huge connection to Black Hole in general, but I'm fascinated by the thought of the movie having problems, him writing the adaptation and like suggesting things to fix
yeah,
issues
yeah.
with it, and then they all just being ignored or whatever.
Kind of like The Force Awakens, like we said last episode.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, I mean that's kind of, yeah, it's kind of a continuation of that issue.
Well,
But
no wonder his book is called this then.
exactly, exactly.
Like the subtitle could be "My History in Hollywood of Being Ignored" on suggestions for scientific fixes.
Yeah. So anyway, that's the two quasi updates, more
Yeah,
clarification of information.
no, that's
So
good. And we're gonna stay on top of the Alan Dean Foster situation as news develops for sure, because if it is coming soon that there's going to be a some kind of announcement in regards to royalties, we want to know absolutely that
Yeah.
he gets his due, and his family and everything is, he doesn't have to worry anymore
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
about stuff. So yeah, that about does it for this episode of Star Wars Unfiltered. Remember, you can find us at our YouTube channel, where you will find endless Let's Play and lore play commentary videos on Dark Forces, among other things. And we're also on Facebook. We are also at Twitter, sometimes, sorta. I gotta still get on Twitter and kind of update more of that. We are at Yahoo, Star Wars Unfiltered at yahoo.com for any questions or comments. And you can find us on Instagram, where I recently managed to not post for a day, and I ruined my like 35-day marathon of posting every day.
You
But
blew it.
I blew it. It's okay. I'm gonna make up for it with 5 more promotional lore play commentaries posts about our Dark Forces uploads that get 3 views. So it's okay. More is coming. And until next time, everyone, take care.
Good night.